show, Breaking Stereotypes, with your host, Zainab Zaeem. Welcome back, everyone, to another, what I hope is going to be a fantastic show, with my guest, whom I will shortly introduce. But for my regulars, as you know, this show is all about literally what it says in the tin, breaking those stereotypes regardless of what they are. So let's get cracking. So today's show, as always, is interactive. And today I'm actually going to play something. I'm not going to say these words. So here goes.
Call in on our studio number, which is 0116 4822 086, or text in at 077 488 055. How
cool is that? It saves me a little bit of talking time and you guys don't have to hear my voice that much. So, once you've got the numbers to telephone in and also text or WhatsApp, you can also chat with us through Facebook on Ramadan Radio FM. Now, as always, I do like to take a few moments and thank the team at Ramadan Radio, as well as my guests, my viewers, my listeners, for all the support that they give me throughout. Without any of you, this show would not be possible and would not have made me win Best Presenter of the Year award. I'm so sorry, but I do have to add that bit in. Okay, so before I do actually continue with the introduction of who we have, I will say who it is, and then I'm not going to go into the intro. I'm going to do a little bit of housekeeping before we do. So today we've got Sergeant Ahmed. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Right, I'm going to call you Adam. Is that all right?
Please do, yes.
Okay, fantastic. Okay. So before we continue with the show, I do want to do a little bit of housekeeping, and I'm going to address the elephant in the room. Now, everyone, or mostly everyone, knows about recent events that have happened in Leicester involving the police and Sergeant Ahmed, along with, a certain group of people here in Leicester. Now, this show is not designed to discuss any of those matters. That is an active and live investigation. We will not be talking about that. Nothing will be discussed about that. If Adam is asked a question about that, he will be advised by others, has been advised, and will be advised as a solicitor to go no comment. So that will not be in question. And as well as that, you are more than welcome to use our facilities to text, to WhatsApp, to chat. Ask Adam questions about what the show's true intended purpose is all about. It's breaking stereotypes, it's facing all the challenges and so on. Please do that. I do encourage that. But any questions regarding those events, they will not be discussed, they will not be looked at, they will be deleted. If there are threats or any racial comments, written or verbal, they will be reported appropriately. If there is any defamation that occurs, rest assured, as a civil litigator myself, there will not only be police action, but there will be private court action and also possibility of your employers finding out as well. So I do urge you to use this show for its true intended purposes, for what is something that everyone should enjoy. And it's all about letting the generation out there, whether you're young, old, whoever you are, it's all about knowing that there are challenges to everyday life, everyday jobs, and how we can overcome them. So now once I've done that housekeeping, I would like to say welcome again to Sergeant Adam. So welcome, Sergeant.
Sure, thank you.
I just called you Sergeant. Right, so you are the first Somali police officer here in Leicestershire. You grew up in the East Leicester and you were educated and raised in the Highfield, St. Matthews area. So you're a local lad, by all means.
Yes, oh God, 100%.
Fantastic. You were initially a Special Constable and then you joined the police full-time in 2017. So it's been a while now.
Yeah, it has been a while, yeah.
Great. And you worked in the Prisoner Management Unit, Neighbourhood Investigation Unit, 999 Response Team, Dedicated Neighbourhood Police Team, and you are now the Beat Sergeant for St. Peter's, St. Matthews, Spinney Hill, and Charnwood Estate. Did I get everything correct?
Yeah, spot on.
Spot on. Okay. So, first Somali police officer, before we actually talk about some of the bits and pieces that you do in your role, I want to say thank you for coming onto the show. I appreciate it. Can be quite overwhelming for most of our guests, but you seem to have eased into it.
No, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Anytime. There is a shout out that we will do, but I'm going to keep the person hanging on so that she listens in for at least some of the show. She knows who she is. Right. So Usually, I like to have an organic conversation with my guests, which means there will be a few set questions, but some of the questions will arise from the conversation that we have. I'm interested to know, given what my knowledge is about Highfields and St. Peter's area and, Evington and some of the areas locally in Leicester, when you were growing up, what actually did you want to be?
So I've always had a fascination with the criminal justice system anyways. And I've always wanted to go in that field in some form or other. And towards the... probably when I was about 17, 18, I was looking at more leaning towards the rehabilitative side of the criminal justice system. And I started working with an outside agency. They're based in London. We were the first youth commission that was set up by them here in Leicester. And it meant that it was a lot of, working with the local community around the youth angle. So one of the portfolios I jumped on was around stop and search, and also the BME community relationship with the police. So that was one of the things that I was actually quite interested in. And then it led me to, because we were doing the work we were doing, meant that I was getting exposed to a lot of people within the police service. And I started talking about, what my thoughts were, what I believe the police service stood for at the time, and what my misconceptions of it really. And we started talking about it, and one of them said to me, and it was a very good conversation, we had like a really open, honest conversation. One of them turned around and said, well, why don't you actually apply and see for yourself? So that's when I applied to become a special constable, so exactly a volunteer police officer. So you've got the warranted powers just like any other regular police officer. The only thing is you're getting paid for it, you know what I mean? But other than that, you are essentially got the same warranted powers as a police officer. And so at the time, I was working for the NHS as well. So I had quite a few gigs going, but NHS was my full-time gig more than anything, more in an administrative role. And I was actually enjoying more doing the special, being a special, etc. So when the recruitment opportunity opened up, and I decided to submit an application form, thinking I wouldn't get anywhere really. A year later, I joined essentially, going through the process and the motions. One of the things that attracted me the most is the varied workload, is the variety of the workload. And actually, you're making actual differences. You're seeing the tangible differences that you're making to individuals' lives, essentially. And also helping to improve the community, etc., that I grew up in. So to a certain degree, it's given back to the community as well. So that's one of the aspects that, one of the reasons why it drew me in even more.
So it's that common phrase, isn't it? To be the change. Well, no, to effect change, you got to be the change. Don't be on the sidelines, talking about, I wish it was this, I wish it was that. Yeah. Actually be part of the change. Oh,
100%. And that's the biggest thing I say to people, I get to meet a lot of people from different backgrounds, different communities, some who are disadvantaged, sadly, financially, in life in general, or who had a bit of a rough upbringing, etc. And I get to meet those who are really privileged. But one thing everybody's have one thing in common is everybody's got an opinion, and everybody believes there's certain things that can be done differently. But it's like you said, if you want to see change, you've got to be that change. Yeah.
And at one point in everyone's life, someone will need help, whether that's the police's help or the NHS's services or a friend's service. It doesn't matter. Everyone needs help. Oh, 100%. So you've told us how you got into it, and we'll come on to your volunteering and the variety of what workloads that you've discussed. But let's go back to the question that I did ask. What did you want to be when you were growing up? So when you were little, did you always know that you wanted to be a police officer or go into this kind of line of work?
Yes and no, if that makes sense.
It does make sense.
Yeah, exactly. Yes and no. It changes as things go on, and
like my daughter.
Yeah, and it does. It fluctuates. It changes. We've all watched like Police Interceptors or Road Wars back then. You know what I mean? And you're watching, and you'll think, oh, that's cool, that's sick, And then you're playing cops and robbers or whatever as a kid and everything. So yeah, at one point I would say yes. I was like, yeah, I want to join the police. But then other points I was like, no, I want to work in the prison service or probation. But it was always in that same field. Is that? Yeah.
So effectively, you did work in the prison system.
No, so
was it prison management or something that you said?
Yeah, so with the prison management unit, what that function, the role was, it was mainly focused around. So let's say hypothetically, you get arrested, the officer will basically write a report do their statement and everything, then they'll pass the case on to me. So at that point, you're a prisoner, aren't you? And my job is basically to process it through that motion in custody. Right. And then we will basically, so I'll go out, do the investigation, interview you. Once we interviewed you, I'll get some form of disposal. So ultimately, we tried to get 2 disposals at the time, which was either NFA you or charge you. Otherwise, worst case scenario, we bail you.
So when you say NFA, no further action.
Sorry, yeah.
And when you say disposal, is that actions that actually are carrying from?
Yeah. So by the time we come to the conclusion, our goal at the time was to have one of those 2 outcomes, ideally. So then it's fair on you as well. Then you know where you stand as well.
Well, I can see from just your conversation how passionate you are about your role, and what it actually. Having the passion that you are displaying is really key in effectively managing your role and what it is that you do. So let's talk a little bit more about, so you've talked about you were volunteering and then you were working in the NHS and it's got a variety of workload, fantastic. And you've explained to us that what made you get into this role. Now, being the first Somali police officer, right? Was that first Somali special or actually first Somali police officer?
It'll be both.
So both as well.
Yeah.
A special. Okay, so for our listeners, can you explain what a special constabulary is? I know what it is.
Yeah.
But for those who don't know, let's explain. So if there is anyone out there who's thinking about going into
100%,
this career, it will help them as well.
So keeping it really simple and just keeping it to the bare bones. You are a police officer. You are a warranted officer. So you will have the power of arrest just like any other police officer. So if you're walking down the street with me, no one will know because you are identical. You'll have the same level of training. You'll have the same level of kit. You'll have the same uniform. Everything is the same. The only difference between you and me would be no pay. So you are volunteering. You are giving up your own time in order to come in order to help your local police. Whether that is, it depends what role you want to do, whether it's community policing, whether it's helping out on the 999 response teams, or even if it's more of the investigative side of stuff of the house, then you can go down that path. We are very welcoming to specials. We want specials to come in because that is extra pair of hands that can help us with our workload because, unfortunately, the demand outstrips the number of resources that we have, and that's with all professions really. Absolutely. More than anything at the minute. So you're basically a volunteer in essence. You are a volunteer police officer, but you wear the same uniform, same powers, and you've got the same level of training.
Okay, so I know when you became a police officer, I'm just quickly going to my note, in 2017. So when did you actually join up as a special constable?
So that'll be 2015.
So for 2 years you did that and then you applied. Yeah. And I take it the application process is quite rigorous. So if you were the first Somali police officer then and constable, what about now? Bearing in mind we're in 2023, do you know roughly what the stats are?
Oh yeah, I do. Here in Leicester, it's very simple.
Okay, go on.
So there's 3 of us.
3? Including
me. In terms of warranted officers. In terms of police staff, so this is where we come into, so warranted officers, I use the word warranted officer. For those who don't know what a warranted officer is, basically a police officer. We are essentially servants of the crown. We take an oath to I took it to the Queen at the time, but it's the King now. And you are basically a servant and you are given a warrant card. That warrant card basically gives you the power to deprive someone of their liberty, to go into someone's home in order to search it or to look for a suspect, etc. So that is what I mean by a warrant card.
Yeah, to do your job, basically.
Basically, to do my job. Yeah. That card, ID card, gives me those powers and authorities. Police staff members, we've got a few Somalis. I want to say there's 4 as well on that side of the house.
So that's administrative side?
Yeah, administrative side. So IT, finance, and, from the... I'm trying to think now. VCCU, I want to say, Violent Crime Reduction Unit.
So effectively what the point we're making is, and if I've got my numbers correct here, and I'm actually counting it up, 7, that's 7.
There we go, 7, yeah.
7 in total.
Approximately, yeah.
Now that's 7 Somalis in Leicestershire. Yeah. Now Leicestershire is made up of Leicester, Rutland, and so many other places. Leicester is not, it's not as big as, say, Birmingham or London. No. Manchester even, but it's still big enough.
Yeah, we've got our fair shares of towns.
Yeah, well, it's bigger than Bolton, which is my hometown, isn't it? And we've got seven Somali police officers or staff that work in the police. So we've actually got a really long way to go. Now, I know recruitment in the police is quite heavy in terms of them sending out the literature, trying to recruit people. Do you think the recruitment of such less amount is not because of the fact that it's not open? Because clearly it's there, because you've applied for it.
Yeah.
So have the others. Is it because the people aren't coming forward for whatever reason?
I think there's a number of factors involved in this. And I think, first, we have to look at ourselves, and I always say, why aren't people not applying? Why aren't people not wanting to join? And we need to address that. There is a lot of misconceptions of the police service, rightly so and wrongly so. There's a lot of belief in that, if I work for the police, how will my community feel about me as well? You've got that angle playing in as well.
I'm going to come to that in a bit. Yeah.
Yeah. So you got that angle playing as well, and these are all valid emotions to feel as well. And then you've got the other side of the house as well. We've had a number of reports. Granted, a lot of them are based about the Met, and it's the Met who are very much heavily dominating the news. But nevertheless, you see all of that, and you're like, why would I want to be part of an organisation of that nature? So there's a lot to combat with, and again, there's a lot of issues to unpack there, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So for those who are wondering what Met means, you're referring to the Metropolitan Police.
Yeah, the cops down south in London.
The London cops.
The London cops.
As I like to call them. Right. So you have touched upon the community, and that is actually something that I want to address, but slightly later on. So for those who have tuned in, you're listening to Breaking Stereotypes with your host, Zainab Zaeem, on Ramadan FM. Today's guest is the lovely Sergeant Ahmed, who actually coincidentally is a good friend of mine, introduced to me by another good friend of mine, Harpreet. So Harpreet, there is your shout out, along with Vix, Krina, Priyan, Tej, Jake, and of course we have Adam. Have I missed anyone out in that?
No, and Yusuf.
And Yusuf, there you go. So that's a quick shout out. Now, without these lovely people, I would not have met Adam, and I am grateful for the introduction, not only because I like to expand my network and it's good to have those connections, it's also a bit of flex, isn't there, to say I know such and such person and so on, but also because my show is all about breaking stereotypes. Literally, it is what it is on the tin. And yes, okay, I've had one or two well-known people on the show, and I truly am grateful for that. But the whole purpose of the show is to bring about Mr. Joe down the street or Mr. Blogs round the corner. I've separated Joe and Blogs there and not put them together because I'm trying to break away from the
stereotype.
Yes. There we go. You got it, nailed it in one. But having you around here now, I'm familiar with you. Now I'm familiar with you because of Harps. Harps is familiar with you because of her brother and so on. So it's all about expanding that connection, that network, but also, as you know, I like to talk. So I like to know about the challenges, but also to educate the people out there, to raise awareness. So going on that theme, one of the first questions I really wanted to get deep dive into is, did you have any challenges?
I think, oh God, 100%. If sitting here, I'll be lying if I said no.
So let's discuss.
So
any challenges that you want to kind of hone into a little bit and talk to us about?
So let's talk about the most obvious and blatant one. I'm a black man. Yeah, I'm from the Somali
You
community.
can say that, I can't.
Well, no, it's fact. I'm sitting right in front of you, aren't I? I'll be insulted if you said otherwise.
Yes. So to the viewers listening, he is what he said he is.
So let's hone into that. And that in itself brought me a lot of situations. When you're out wearing the uniform, and in particular working in an area where you've pretty much grew up in and you kind of know people as well. So when I joined the police, a number of people stopped talking to me.
I can imagine.
Yeah, a number of people have stopped talking to me. And for me, it's a blessing, and I see it as a blessing, and it's a good thing now that I reflect on it. But at the time, I was like, what the hell is going on? Why are you doing this for, etc., And but looking back at it, I'm glad, because you've shown your true colours. You've shown who you truly are and what you're really all about. So it was great, you cut a few people off, etc., and you moved on, and the ones who you truly were friends with and who truly do appreciate you stuck around. They hung around, and they were like your support network, backing you, encouraging you to go and carry on doing quite well, and you go and do what you got to do, kind of thing. So I think you've got that challenges as well. So when you talked about recruitment and stuff like that, that's one of the things that most people will face, or initial stages of it, or because you will get unfortunate people who generally have, to the point where I always say to people, I'm just Adam Ahmed. Fine, I'm a cop, I wear a uniform and that, but that's my job, you know what I mean? But once I clock out, I'm clocked out, you know what I mean? It's just me, Adam Ahmed. I'm here to have a laugh. I'm here to have a banter. I always say to people, I'm not this, what do you call it? I lost the word for it. It's in my mind, but I can't say it out of my mouth. But I always say, I'm not one of these sort of people where, I'm on 24/7. I'm not.
I'm cool.
Yeah. And, those are that's one of the angles, one of the conflicts. The other one is when you're wearing the uniform and you're out and about, you're going to get racially abused. Yeah, whether you're black, Asian, if you are identifiable as someone from an ethnic minority group, whether that's from a race point of view or from a religious point of view, you are going to become a target. Whether you like it or not, you will become a target. Now, most people are probably thinking, oh, he's probably been racially abused by white people. No, I've been racially abused by Asians as well.
I was going to say, I guarantee you're probably been abused by, and I hate to use this word, but our kind. Yeah. Because that is where usually the most comes from. I've
had fellow Muslims literally stand there and tell me, and it's hilarious sometimes because some of them are known individuals to the police for the wrong reasons, stand there and try to lecture me as to how I'm a kuffar and tell me I'm a kuffar. And
kuffar meaning non-believer.
Non-believers, yeah. And they stand there and they try to lecture me and how that I'm enforcing the laws of, of the non-believers. Yeah.
But let me stop you very quickly then. I apologize because I think this is the right time to say, doesn't Islam say obey the land of the law that you live in?
Yes, 100%. But here's the thing, that once you chuck that back at them, and I'm very opinionated. I'm professional, but I'm not one to back away from a conversation.
Absolutely.
I'll give as good as I get, but in a professional way, and with mannerisms, of course.
Of course, have to add that in.
Oh, you have to.
Have to add that in.
But you will have that conversation with them, and it's quite bamboozling when you hear their rationale and their thought process, especially when you're standing in front of them and you're dealing with them for committing a criminal offence, and yet they are saying what they're saying. So I'll probably say I'm a very thick-skinned person anyways, naturally. It takes a lot to upset me now, but again, going back to the point I was making earlier about the racial elements, I have been called everything you can think of. I won't say over the radio because you probably end up losing a license or something.
Yeah, let's not go down that road.
But every stereotypical comment you can think of saying to a black man, I've had it.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
And I can imagine how hurtful it is. But you talk about you having a thick skin. I mean, that comes with time and experience.
Oh, definitely.
So the more experience you have in the job, the more you can let it, slide off your back. And I said my words a bit wrong earlier. It's not land of the law, it's law of the land that you live in. And Islam is a big promoter that you have to follow the laws of your land. So being a police officer, in fact, is not something that is against our religion, and B, it's not even something that's frowned upon. Yes, of course, if you were someone who took advantage of your role and you abused your powers, that's different. And of course, we all know that every organization, every institution is going to have that, be it the legal field, be it the criminal justice field. It doesn't matter. We're always going to have a
100%.
Bad bunch. So you've discussed about the challenges that you had going in. Now, funnily, you say that you lost a few people. I, as a solicitor, actually gained
Okay.
It's amazing how many friends and family come out the woodworks when they find out you're a solicitor, because they all want that free advice. And I'm, more than happy to help where I can. And I do help where I can. But you give a hand and they take a whole arm. So there's a line to be drawn.
Yeah.
But interestingly, you talk about you in your role getting all sorts of comments. And I know, every industry will have that. I had a guest just last month, and she was a quantity surveyor for Balfour Beatty, and she got mistaken for like a receptionist, being a Muslim female engineer on that site. But I've had ambulance chaser. And when I first became a solicitor, when I was a trainee, I didn't know what ambulance chaser was. Okay. So I smiled and I went, oh yeah, okay, let me look into that, because I was being, nice.
Yeah, Google it.
Yeah, and then I Googled ambulance chaser and I was mortified. I don't do personal injury, and even if you did, so what? People still need help.
Oh, 100%,
but secondly, the term. And then when I used to do immigration, I used to get, so you're one of those that lets everybody in. Yeah, because I'm the one who makes the decision, sitting behind the Home Office desk and doing my legal job as well. So it is these misconceptions. But one of the things I found about majority of our roles is the mindset that parents bring over from when, because I don't know about you, but I am the first gen to have been brought up. My kids would be the second generation. Yeah. My father having emigrated from India back in the 60s. So they naturally have brought their mindset over. What we can and can't do. Like my mum to this day, if I'm out with my friends, will probably ring me about 4 to 5 times, and if I don't pick up, she'll ring my son, then my other son, and so on. Yeah. I'm 41 years old, right? So to still have my mum hounding me, or should I say following up with me, if I was to then ring my 20-year-old son, he can deal with that, because if I as a 41-year-old have to, but it's their mindset. So I can appreciate the community that you're probably serving, the community that you've been brought up in will have those misconceptions. But let's talk about the support system. Now, you mentioned you had support from your friends. Now, what about the family? Was the support there from the family, or were they a bit apprehensive at first, but now they absolutely love it, knowing what it is that you do? If you can talk about it, that would be great. If not, I can always move on to the next question.
No, it's fine. I think with my family, they are supportive of the profession I've chosen. The job I've chosen to do, essentially. Naturally, with parents, there always will be concerns, especially in terms of, police officers. It's one of those roles where you are pretty much putting yourself at risk all the time, especially when you're trying to deprive someone of their liberty, or you're trying to protect someone, etc. So you are physically putting yourself in physical harm's way. So naturally, you've got those emotions from my parents and that. So I'm very acutely aware of that. So I'm very much mindful of what I say to my family and what I tell them, in terms of the sort of, we call it jobs, but incidents that I deal with, or cases I deal with. So you got to be there, and last thing I want to do is make them worry and panic about, is that Adam going out doing that? But when I was applying and joining, there was naturally some apprehension about it all. There were some concerns. And was it a profession that they would have wanted me to go in at the time? Going back at it, no, it wasn't. It wasn't one of those professions at all. But it's going back to what you said about the mentality from back home and that, and policing back home wasn't really seen as a profession.
No, it still isn't. In places like India, sorry to interrupt, in places like India and that, it's the corruption, isn't it? Yeah. And before I read out something that my producer has kindly put up on the TV screen for me, having done the research, my grandma, my nan, my mum's mum, Allah rest her peace. Allah rest her peace, may she rest in peace. When she found out I became a solicitor, and she came down from India, because she regularly came, she looked me point blank in the face. She goes, I'm so proud of you, Zainab. So proud that you've become a solicitor. But she goes, but solicitor? Of all the careers, solicitor? And I went, Nanima, I've worked hard to get to where I am, non-traditional route and everything. Why'd you say that? She goes, but lawyers lie a lot. Lawyer. And I honestly laughed, but I was deep down mortified that my Nanima said this to me. And I looked at her and I said, look, Nanima, I get where you were coming from, because in India there's loads of corruption and that. But actually here in England, we have the code of conduct that we have to very strictly follow. And if not, we run the risk of losing our practicing license, our certificate. We can lose that. There are so many rules that we have to stick to. Integrity, honesty. We are round the clock solicitors. We cannot do anything that's against the public interest. So it's not that we are liars. It's just we are portrayed like that. Now, going on to the land of the law, my producer has kindly done that research for me. So it says here, Sayyiduna Allah ibn Umar narrates that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "It is necessary upon a Muslim to listen to and obey the ruler as long as one is not ordered to carry out a sin. If he is commanded to commit a sin, then there is no adherence and obedience." And that is in Sahih al-Bukhari 2796 and Sunan Tirmidhi. Jazakallah so much, Akil, for that. And it's like I always say, I always end my show with saying, and it's appropriate for me, it's very apropos for me to say it now, as long as whatever we are doing, we are not committing any sins in our religion, and we're not going against any law as laid down by our system, then you can accomplish anything. And that's what we're talking about today, your challenges and so on. So we've talked about how many people there are in the police force and so on. Sorry, I had a runaway pen there. Now, this is Breaking Stereotypes with Zainab, Zaeem, Satar. You can send us a question or a comment on Facebook, text on WhatsApp. Do take this opportunity to do so. Now, have you had to make any sacrifices? Now, you've talked about losing friends.
Yeah.
Or people that acquaintances, and that could be a big deal. Sometimes you probably don't even make friends because you are I don't want to really use this word, but a copper, or as my kids say, fed. I don't know when we became American, but apparently we're American. We're feds now, aren't we? Did you have to make any sacrifices?
Yeah, so naturally, when you apply to join the police service, you are essentially accepting to lose certain level of privileges. So to a certain degree, your right to a private life gets eroded as well. Your right to a private life gets eroded to a certain degree as well. So you've got that element of it. When I talk about your right to a private life, what I mean is because of the role that we're in and the level of authority and power that we carry, and rightly so, we are essentially heavily much more scrutinized, if that makes sense. And that could be via the media, for example, or it could be by the general public, etc. And so, sorry, what was the question?
Have you made any sacrifices?
Yeah, okay. So in terms of
I'm so sorry, I think I'm distracting you, but
fine.
I need to reach out to my producer right now.
No, it's fine. So in terms of sacrifices and that, I'll probably say, what would I have sacrificed? In honesty, I think it would probably be a lot of time. Time. I have sacrificed a lot of time to get to where I am today.
Okay, that's interesting. That's a very interesting concept. Hold on to that. I'm going to come on to that. We have actually had a comment on Facebook for us. Akil, may I see that Facebook comment, please? It says, for now, could you, because I've got a Bolton accent, and sometimes when I say certain words...
Do you want me to read it?
Could you just read the name of that commenter, please? Because I know others will hear it in a different way.
Okay. For facts'
sake. Thank you very much, because as a northerner, I do get picked on about my accent. So thank you very much. It says, amazing program, very well spoken and professional. I see a side you can't see. Thank you for looking after the community and city. Sad to hear all the challenges from the community. We are our very own worst enemy. Thank you, Zaeem. I think that meant to say Zainab. Amazing usual. Could you please expand on that, Akil? Thank you. Amazing as usual. We need you on more, please. Oh, Jazakallah so much. That has really warmed my heart, because sometimes I do wonder whether people actually tune into my show and listen. So I do truly appreciate that. So thank you very much. See?
So you got some fans, innit?
Well, you've got fans as well. Now, you talked about time.
Yeah.
I want to touch upon that. I'm going to put my hat on and be devil's advocate here.
Go on then.
Now, you said sacrifice time. But could that not be classed as a sacrifice, because actually you're doing something to further your career?
So what I mean by that, so for example, you have something called the working time regulations. You let's say hypothetically, you work 9 to 5. Yeah, and come 5 o'clock, that's you done. Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes. But hypothetically for most people, come 5 o'clock, they can clock out if they choose to. If not, they stay on, and they, if you got a bit more extra urgent admin to do or whatever it may be, you got some urgent tasks, you'll stay on, you'll be like, I'll stay on for an extra hour or two. With us as police officers, we don't get that privilege. We don't get that choice. We don't have the same employment laws that you have. We're governed by police regulations, we're governed by laws, and we have to follow those we have to follow those police regulations that are in place. So when I mention time, there have been many occasions when I have made plans in an evening, after an early shift, for example, I finish at 4 p.m. and I'm like, right, quickly go home, get changed, shower, whatever. I then quickly nip out and go and meet some friends. What happens? I have to stay on. I can't walk away, because let's say at 3:30, I was sent to a domestic, for example. I have to deal with that. I have to deal with that victim. I can't turn around and say, I'm really sorry, love, I've got to go, it's 4 o'clock. I can't say that to a victim. That's unacceptable, you know what I mean? They're in their worst time of their life. I have to see it through. So if I end up arresting, it could be a male, of course, but I'm just going to stereotype. I know I shouldn't stereotype given the title of your show.
I was going to say,
yeah.
Yes.
But for simplicity purposes, let's say it's a female and she's a victim of domestic and I nick the partner. That, for me to process them, book them in, get them through custody, I then go back to the victim, get a statement from the victim, document her injuries, if she has any injuries and everything, and spend that quality time with the victim to give them that reassurance that, we're going to support you, we're here to support you, we're here to look after you, we're here to help you, etc. Because it's already difficult as it is for most people to put pen to paper, especially when it's one of your loved ones.
Yeah.
So that's already difficult as it is. They don't want someone turning around, watching the clock every 15, 20 minutes, thinking, I gotta go. So which means then sometimes, and it's happened plenty of times, I end up going home about 9, 10 p.m. and that's my day gone. Yeah. So that's what I mean by sacrificing time. And that is one of the things that as police officers, we have no control over it. We really don't. Because one minute you're thinking, right, it's 3:30, just 30 more minutes, I'm nearly done. I can go home, go out with my mates and chill. The next thing you know is you're sitting in a living room with a victim of crime or someone who's basically bleeding or whatever it may be, who's been attacked or whatever, and it's the worst point in their lives. Last thing they want to hear is how you want to go out and link up with your friends. I'd be so
frustrated. The first thing I would be doing is forget making a complaint against the partner. I'd be complaining against the police officer. The reason why I wanted to elaborate on that time element is you've hit the nail on the head. Those who are not in such a rigid, regulated industry, don't have the opt-out option. Now, many people who are working, they will know when you sign up to a new job, you'll get a documentation from your employers and it will say, do you wish to opt out? And I think I should know this because I'm an employment lawyer as well as a civil litigation lawyer. I think it's 40 or 46 hours, and I could be completely wrong, it could be 48, but it's gone straight up my head because we've talked so many numbers. But you get to opt out of that. And if you don't opt out, then your employers can't force you to work over those dedicated hours. It actually becomes illegal for them to do so. And the reason why I wanted to discuss that is because so many times as a solicitor, and you know me, Adam, I do a lot of mentoring, I'll do a lot of volunteering, and I do get the odd comments now and then. I'm giving up my time, and I get comments like, oh, you're only doing it because you want to, put your name out there, or you like the attention. And whether I like the attention or not, the fact is, it's all irrelevant because I'm helping someone. I'm helping that uni student, I'm helping that grad student, I'm helping that mother of 2 children. And I'm not going to brag here, but I will give you an example. I was assigned a mentee a year and a half ago who's got 2 little kids. And she was very nervous as being part of my mentee because she'd heard so much about me. And she was, excited for me to be her mentor as well. And she didn't know what she was expecting. Anyway, I'm in a meeting with her online. Her partner's in the background, not babysitting the kids. And she started crying because a kid was crying in the background and she didn't know what to do. Okay. I told her, I said, put your child on your lap. let me give you a question that I want you to think about for 5 minutes. Think about this and let me see your child. Now, had he been there in front of me, I'd have picked the kid up and I would have played with him, but he wasn't. So I was limited as to what I could do. So in front of the screen, I started playing and just moving my fingers every now and then and doing numbers and, distracting the child long enough for him to start smiling and calm the mother down.
Yeah.
And that is not for attention. That is to simply help people. And that's why I wanted to discuss the time element with you, because one of the biggest misconceptions about being a police officer is that you're a fed. You're a pig was the common word, which my kids thankfully don't use. But that was the biggest word that used to be used, especially when I was growing up. But, there is that awareness out there that all you do is arrest the wrong people, go after the wrong people, or you hassle and whatever. But even though you do all of that in terms of arresting people and investigations and whatnot, there's also the other side to it, where you are there for the victim.
Yeah.
You are there to take their statement. And those will present challenges in itself because not everyone's forthcoming.
No. So no. And you've hit it on the head there. When I always say to people, look, we've arrested you, fine. You've been arrested. I'm not demeaning it at all in terms of emotionally, mentally, what you're going through. It is a big deal to get arrested. It's not an easy process to go through. But you've hit it on the head. When we arrest someone, it doesn't automatically mean you've done anything wrong. It's just literally what it is on suspicion. That's all it is. It's on suspicion. That's the key word there, suspicion. The burden of arrest in this country compared to other European countries is quite low. It's not quite high. And we can have a discussion about that, the pros and cons about that all day long. But in essence, you've hit it on the head. But we're there for the victims ultimately, because we have to risk assess the situation. We've got to make a decision whether or not there's a risk there as well. That's a factor as well in our decision making. We've got to look at it from an evidential point of view. Evidentially, are we going to gain or lose if we don't arrest you, etc.? So there's a lot of stuff in the background and the decision making going on in your head. And believe it or not, the incidents where we attend as police officers are spontaneous incidents. They're not planned. So I can't sit in an office and be like, right, in 3 hours' time, so-and-so is going to get assaulted. So what are you going to do? Whatever. We haven't. You get there and it's literally, you've got people running at you. People want to talk to you. People want to tell you their side of the story, what happened, etc. Then you've got to try and figure out who's the suspect and who's the victim. And then it's right, okay, or are they both suspects? Who knows? And
in the day and age of social media, we are all very familiar with how things can be portrayed quite differently.
Yes. So you've got to make that dynamic risk assessment. You've got to quickly make those decisions. And do we get it right all the time? No. Have I made mistakes? I have in the past, but we don't always get it right. But we're human beings.
Yeah, absolutely. And the whole purpose of a criminal justice system was, if it was meant to be perfect, it would be perfect. Nothing is ever perfect.
Oh, no,
Even
100%.
computer systems, we use AIs and things like that, but it's never a perfect system. And if people actually looked into, and majority of the people probably have, but if they actually looked into how the criminal justice system came about, or even how the police system came about, there's a whole history of what used to happen. And I'm not going to start giving everyone a history lesson. The information is out there for those to Google. But back in the day, and I'm talking back way back then, people system came about was to, if people didn't break the rules, we wouldn't need such organizations.
No, you wouldn't have a job. I wouldn't have a job.
Exactly, but people break the rules, right? It's innate. Not everybody, but some people break. Now, solicitors and like in the criminal side, because I do like you and I get along with you.
Oh, I think we would have got on. I think we'll be able to keep it professional.
I hope so. I certainly hope so. But one thing I've learned about time with you is that you're a genuine, sincere and honest person, and if I didn't see any of those within you, I would not talk to you longer than a few minutes, because given my age and given my history and the experiences I've gone through, I'm very quick to stay away to be healthy to my life or to my relationship. So I am very grateful to the shout outs I've already done, for that introduction. And you obviously work, or sometimes have worked with my cousin Khadija, who was the first Muslim female police officer, trainee, to trial the hijab. And she made it all the way to, I think, New Zealand or Australia, was it?
No, it was New Zealand, I believe.
It was New Zealand, yeah. So, it kind of, for me, I'm always open to hearing a bit more about different perspectives, So we've talked about sacrifices. We don't have that long left. We've got about 4.5 minutes. So to those who are tuning into the end, why are you tuning into the end is what I want to know. But regardless, this is Breaking Stereotypes on Ramadan FM with your host, Zainab Zaeem. We have Sergeant Adam Ahmed on the show with us tonight. Very quick.
Call in on our studio number, which is 0116 4822 086, or text in at 077 488 055.
Brilliant. I really do enjoy that button nowadays. And you could chat through our Facebook, as we have already had a comment, so you can see how easy it is. Now, we've talked about sacrifices, challenges, and so on. So I might not be able to cover all the questions very quickly. We talked about law of the land that we live in.
Yes.
We've got to adhere to that. Now, do you feel that your career sometimes clashes with that of your faith?
I've not come across that. For me personally, I've not yet come across that. We do have a network, the Association of Muslim Police. We do have a volunteer chaplain as well, a Mulana, who's there to guide us and help us from the deen perspective, from a religious perspective. If you have any questions or if we feel like there's a sticky situation or a sticky dilemma, we can approach him and have that confidence to have a chat with him. He's vetted and everything's gone through the vetting system, which means you can have a bit more detailed conversation than I would, for example, with my own mosque I go to, with the Mulana, my mosque, or the Sheikh, or the Imam, or however you want to refer it. So it does help. We've got that support network in place. In the Association of Muslim Police, we've got about 100 people, I believe, at the moment, something along that number. So we've got that, and we've got people in that association who've got a longer service than I do. So we're able to bounce off each other. But for me personally, answering your question, I've not yet crossed that bridge. I've not had that dilemma. But you got to remember, I work in neighbourhood policing. So there's not going to be much of a conflict there.
Would it shock you if I was to tell you that actually some of the values that policing does promote or should be promoting aligns with what Islam says anyway?
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah. It's one of those conversations I have with people. I say, look, hitting someone, right or wrong, keeping a really simple hit, no, it's wrong, isn't it? You taking something that don't belong to you, is that right or wrong? Wrong. You going out and basically doing inappropriate stuff in a public place, right or wrong, that society deems to be wrong. So you're right, the values and the laws, they do fit hand in hand to a certain degree.
Absolutely. So actually, the role of a police officer is commendable, as long as the police officer is not abusing their powers.
Oh, 100%, yeah.
And that's what it comes down to. And it's very similar to us being solicitors. We get that a lot. How could you defend people? How can you defend criminals? But Islam actually says side of the story.
100%.
One of the questions I wanted to ask you was, do you have any tips for our listeners or viewers, anyone who you feel that whatever tips that you have can help them overcome any fears or their lack of confidence? About 30 seconds.
So any fears or lack of confidence, do what you want to do in life, within legal framework, of course. Enjoy it. And Islam, of course, yeah. Don't let anyone tell you can't achieve something. Anything's achievable in life as long as you put your mind to it. And just work hard towards something that you want to achieve in life, and don't let anyone put you down.
Fantastic. I say Islam, what I should have said was whatever religion you believe in, and if you don't believe in a religion, then that's absolutely fine, but within your own beliefs itself. So we have had a question, how can people join the police? If you could quickly answer that,
yes. I can quickly answer it.
So
we do often recruit and we advertise on Leicestershire Police website. Just Google it, Leicestershire Police. Go on the career section of Leicestershire Police, where all the careers are advertised. Police officer roles are advertised. Police staff roles are advertised. And just have a look. And if you want to if you're thinking about joining a police officer but don't understand it, watch Fresh Cops on BBC iPlayer.
Yes, Fresh Cops. Oh, I didn't even get a chance to
There you
mention
go.
that.
I thought I'd quickly get that in.
Yeah, Fresh Cops. Adam was actually part of that show along with my cousin Khadija. So if you've not watched it, please do watch it. Fresh Cops on BBC iPlayer. You know what? Believe it or not, I've not watched it fully myself. So I need to get cracking. Well, you've been a pleasure to have on the show. Everyone, thank you so much for listening in. This is Breaking Stereotypes on Ramadan FM with your host, Zainab Zaeem. And as always, it's been a pleasure. Until